can you tell us the difference between the higher self, guides, angels, and yeah, that's it. Yeah, about
Yeah,
this. Yeah,
definitely.
yeah.
Yeah. So our higher self is similar in vibration to our guides or our angels, but it's a little different. So our spiritual guides and our angels usually exist in higher dimensions, and they exist in frequencies related to our own human chakras, but the chakras that are outside of our physical body. So there are certain major chakras. There's major chakras and minor chakras, and people count them in different ways. But there's certain major chakras along our nervous system, and they really relate to the vibrations of the human experience. And an angel or a guide or your higher self is vibrating at a level that's beyond the human experience. And that's why it has a different way of understanding reality. So these higher beings and these higher energies are very peaceful and very blissful, very loving, very caring. And they also have a different perspective that often carries wisdom. I consider angels some of the highest beings in creation because they're very, very loving. Their type of intelligence has a very strong universal quality integrated into it. So an angel will often be perceived as having less of a individual personality and more of a universal quality of intelligence. Whereas a guide, I experience more like a friend. And a guide has a personality that sometimes is very human-like. Now, some guides can even be animal types of consciousness. So the intelligence might be more simplistic, more basic than even a human personality. Some people's guides are more evolved, like ascended masters or ascended souls that have already graduated from the human experience of learning. So different people have different guides, and they'll have different levels of conscious understanding and creative energy, intelligence, and awareness. But the guides still, they feel closer to us. They feel more similar to us, where an angel feels a little more distant because it has such an elevated type of understanding that is really more like this mind of God type of understanding. And the energy of an angel is absolutely beautiful. The times I've interacted with an angelic consciousness, it just feels so blissful and so loving. It really feels like you just dissolve, like you just dissolve yourself into this beautiful energy and harmony. So it's really, really a beautiful experience. And in that energy, we often have very little questions or no questions at all because the energy itself is so satisfying that there's really nothing that we're looking for. There's no questions that need to be answered anymore. We're just held in this beautiful, nourishing, angelic energy. Okay,
Wow,
so
that's
yeah.
lovely. It's like you disintegrate. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you just disintegrate into that beautiful angelic field. Yeah. Yeah, now the higher self's a little different. Okay, so the higher self is not like a separate being, right? When I go up and I communicate with non-physical beings, I'll actually perceive them outside of myself as if I would see a person in this physical world. Even an angelic being, I'll see it outside of myself, but because I'm in its dimension with it, I'm going to feel its energy inside of myself as my own emotion, essentially, as my own vibration. So in these non-physical dimensions, when we communicate with non-physical beings, we don't really have this barrier of separation that we feel so strongly in the human world. And the reason is we don't have this physical body that feels so dense, and it gives us this solid appearance of form and space. In the non-physical realm, we don't have a container like this. Instead, we're more like vibrations that just express, kind of like a light bulb expresses. So we don't have this boundary, and we don't feel this boundary around us energetically. So when I meet a guide, for example, I'm going to perceive how this guide feels in a very clear way. Now, some of you might be empathic, which means you can feel emotional energy very well while you're in the human world. Being empathic in the world is very similar to communicating with non-physical beings in the sense that we're really able to feel the other person's emotional energy very well. And we feel it as if it's our own, like it got into our own energy system. So in the non-physical, we're very open. We feel each other's energy very clearly. In the higher dimensions, even the quality of our minds merge together. So when I'm in this angelic field with these angels around me, I'm feeling like my own understanding is very angelic, right? And like I said, when you're in that energy, you really don't have questions because everything just feels beautiful and perfect and serene. It's like you're on the most perfect vacation and there's nothing else going on in your mind. You're just taking it all in. So even the quality of my mind becomes like that angelic intelligence when I'm in that place with them. I'm going to describe the higher self now because the higher self's different. The higher self is a part of our own intelligence. And depending upon how fully we become the higher self, we can feel its angelic-like qualities. Or it might feel like it's very distant to us and it's just communicating to us and we feel very human-like. So the higher self is located along this central channel, and there are these other chakras, and the higher self is pretty far up there, but it comes down into us, and we may meet it in one of these different chakras. And it's kind of a loose illustration of it, so your mind can paint a picture. So when we connect, if I'm only able to expand myself to a certain distance, then it feels like the higher self is still communicating into me. I feel it inside of this channel of me. When I see a guide, I see it outside of me. I see it in front of me. When I see an angel, I see it in front of me. When I see the higher self, it's not a person, it's not a being, it's not a face that I see or a body that I see. It's really a higher part of my knowing, and it appears inside of this central channel. The more I feel myself expanding in size and going upward, the closer I get to its level of wisdom and energy and awareness. So I start becoming the higher self or my own higher self as I expand myself into these higher states of energy. Another guide will never feel like it's inside of me in that same way. Right? If you're empathic, you feel the energy, but it's still coming from outside of you, into you, from the front usually. But with the higher self, it's like you're becoming it, and even if you can't quite reach that state, it still feels like it's moving inside of you in the central channel.
Okay, it's a bit coming out of your container, yeah?
Yes, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, definitely out of the human body.
separate yourself about your physical body, let's say.
Yeah, so we can stretch. So when I channel, for example, I'm aware of my physical body, but I'm less aware of it as I stretch greater in size. So when I'm channeling and I'm in a very deep channeling state, I might just feel my lips moving, but I might not feel the rest of my body. And I feel myself as this big expanded state. And whatever I'm talking about, I'm seeing and I'm feeling. It's as if I am that experience I'm channeling about. And the only thing keeping me talking in the body is the fact that I still feel my mouth moving. But I'm not controlling my mouth. I'm just up here being the experience, and the communication's just flowing through naturally.
Ah, okay. And the ETs, I wanted to ask you about. Is, are there guides, normal guides, the ETs?
Well, there's the term extraterrestrial often refers to anything without a physical human body. So there are ETs in lots of different dimensions. Sometimes what people consider ETs are actually beings that live in the physical universe, but they live a great distance away from our physical world, and they have technology that allows themselves to travel here. Right? So they have ships that use energy sources, or they understand the laws of physics in a different way that human beings do, and they're able to come here in their physical machines. Other ETs exist in maybe a dimension above the physical reality. So we can't see them with our eyes unless they adjust themselves to us. Right? So sometimes you may notice that, like, I saw an ET in my bedroom, right? But no one else saw it. Or I see a ship, in the sky, but no one else sees it. So we can adjust our senses to perceive one dimension or two dimensions above us, and then we see their existence. Or sometimes they connect with us because often we have a desire to interact with them, and they then come into our personal consciousness in a way that raises our vibration to see them. So there's lots of ETs at different levels of reality, different dimensions. I think sometimes in our human way of thinking, we divide everything so concretely. It's like this is the third dimension Earth, and then there's another fourth dimension Earth and a fifth dimension. And it's like our logic cuts everything off and we separate it. But my experience that everything's really one flow. It's
Mm.
like you can count the waves in the ocean, but you can't really separate one wave from another wave. You can draw a theoretical line and say, okay, at the lowest point of the wave, we're going to divide it. And that's the first wave and the second wave. But in reality, the universe never divided the two waves. The water flows the same between all of them. And that's my experience with the dimensions, is that everything is flowing together and connected. And the more we realize that we are all one with everything, the more we can experience our own perception going into these different dimensions with these.
Okay. Interesting.